Hello, A-Push students. This is Mr. Kufs. You've got snow day number 5 today, and considering we take a test on May 5th and we're competing against the rest of the country that isn't getting snow days, we need to make up some missed work here. The 4-day weekend's fun for all of us, but you guys need to do some work for me today. And it starts with getting out your AMSCO book, opening up to Becoming a World Power, and getting out your notes that I gave you. We need to finish up the chapter on becoming a world power and imperialism today using this method. I wish I could just Skype you live and then we could, or go on Facebook and you could throw me hearts and likes. But I don't have that technology. I'm sitting in Billy's room. Pause the video and go get the stuff, and I'll wait. Okay. Hopefully we're back. What you need to do is you need to review all of the information about the Spanish-American War in detail and what imperialism was and how we were looking to expand our marketplace. And we've got this industrial revolution and this new flux of immigrants. And there's this push to expand to, to show our might. And some of it's the white man's burden that we needed to push out our Anglo-Saxon Protestant democracy ways to the less civilized people of the world. And there's also this mindset that we need to expand marketplaces. But whatever the reason, there's multiple causes and effects of the Spanish-American War, and I need you to look at them. And really, we're opening up to the Asian market. I need you to look over the open door policy and John Hay and all of that information. And really where I want to pick up is on Teddy Roosevelt. McKinley gets assassinated, and Teddy Roosevelt ascends to the presidency. He's the youngest president in American history, and he's a very unique kind of character in American history. He's got a lot of, he's very brazen. He's got, some might say arrogant, some might say confident, some might say that he's amazing, some might say he's a bully. But whatever you think he is, he's a little bit of all of that probably. And as president, he's going to do it his way. And the first thing he believes in, and remember this chapter is about foreign policy, how we deal with other countries. He believes in a tough foreign policy. He believes in might and strength. And that's where really his big stick policy comes from. You need to know this quote. Write it down. Speak softly, but carry a big stick. And this is really what Teddy believes in. He believes especially in our hemisphere. He believes in the Monroe Doctrine, and he believes that it is our obligation to keep Europe away from this hemisphere and to keep peace in this hemisphere. And the best way to do that is American might and American strength. And what he does is he adds a corollary that's in addition to the Monroe Doctrine called the Roosevelt Corollary, which basically says, remember, the Monroe Doctrine says to Europe, you're going back to 1823, it says, hey, stay out of our hemisphere, we'll stay out of yours. Well, the Roosevelt Corollary says, stay out of our hemisphere, we'll stay out of yours, and if you don't, we'll get out the big stick. Basically, it puts teeth to, or strength to, or basically adds muscle to the Monroe Doctrine. Okay? Teddy also wants to build a canal. This has been something that's been talked about for 50 some odd, 60 some odd years to take this Isthmus of Panama, which is a 51-mile strip, and to dig a canal out. Remember, airplanes were just invented in December of 1903 by the Wright brothers, so they could never see what planes would become. So we're living in a world that is ruled by travel on water. And to cut that time of water travel on a trip from, say, New York City to San Francisco, where you have to go all the way around the southern tip of South America, to cut that time so substantially makes it valuable to build the canal for really America economically. Now, there's a problem. Panama is ruled by Colombia, a South American country. So we try to buy Panama from Colombia, and Colombia says, we don't try to buy Panama. We try to buy the place where we can build the canal. And Colombia says, no thanks. So instead, in American-like fashion, we help the Panamanians stage a revolution, and we supply them with assistance. They overthrow the Colombian government, and then we get to building. We force our way into the Hay-Banao-Varilla Treaty. which basically gives us the agreement to build the canal. The canal itself would take 11 years. It would extend past Teddy Roosevelt's presidency. It would be ravaged by yellow fever, malaria because of the mosquitoes and the heat. It was very difficult to build, but once it was built, it was everything that we had hoped for. Unfortunately, by 1921, we felt guilty and gave Columbia $25 million because we felt this guilt that we bullied our way into building the canal and that revolution and whatnot. But we got what we wanted. And another fun fact, we controlled the Panama Canal Zone up until President Jimmy Carter in the late 1970s put an agreement in that in 1999, the Panama Canal Zone would go back to the nation of Panama, which it has. It's an amazing canal. It's 10 feet wide, and it really was everything that Teddy had wanted. If we look at Teddy Roosevelt a little further, we want to look at his interaction with the Japanese. The first thing was there was a war between Russia and Japanese called the Russo-Japanese War, and Teddy negotiated a peace treaty, and of all places, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. It brings the two parties together, 1904, ends up getting a Nobel Peace Prize for ending the Russo-Japanese War. And he's gaining a world reputation as a tough leader. The next thing he does is he funds a great white fleet of U.S. ships that he's going to parade around the world. Kind of picture it this way. You spend all winter doing CrossFit and heavy lifting, get your muscles all built up so that when the spring comes, you can wear the tank top and show off the guns and scare everyone. And that's basically what Teddy does. He builds up the military so that in the springtime he can parade the great white naval fleet of America, particularly through Japanese waters in Tokyo, in the Tokyo Bay, and say, oh my goodness, look at those American ships. We would never mess with that country. Well, we might, but it won't be for another 40 years, but we might. There's a little foreshadowing there. Another thing he does is a gentleman's agreement, which is predicated on racism. We were sick of Japanese immigrants coming in large numbers to the West Coast, and Japan was frankly sick of losing immigrants to the West Coast. So Japan and the United States come up with an agreement. This is Teddy Roosevelt's thing. Hey, you stop sending people over here, and we will stop discriminating against the Japanese students in our American schools that were really treated as second-class citizens in California and on the West Coast. That wasn't anything formal. It was a gentleman's agreement, which means it was a handshake. But, Japan was going to send less immigrants, and in return, we were going to be nicer and not discriminate as much against the Japanese children, which we were doing. Kind of a rough little blemish in foreign policy. After Teddy Roosevelt leaves the office, his, at the time, friend, who later doesn't become a friend, William Howard Taft, really what you need to know for his foreign policy is called dollar diplomacy. And it speaks for itself. Dollar diplomacy is exactly what it sounds like. It's putting financial interests ahead of anything else, particularly in Latin America. So ultimately, it was about investing money into the security of the nations in Central and South America, in American economic interests, and we know it as dollar diplomacy. The last of the three presidents in this chapter is Woodrow Wilson. Wilson's a Democrat. He's the only Democrat other than Grover Cleveland since Abraham Lincoln. He'll be a two-term president who ushers us through World War I. But really, his diplomacy is known as moral diplomacy, and your morals are your values, and it's very value driven. He wants to give the Philippines back to the Filipino people. He wants to give Puerto Ricans citizenship, American citizenship. He's the one that pushes for the Panama Canal zone to allow Colombia to have the 25 million. He wants to right the wrongs of what he would probably consider Teddy Roosevelt, TR as he's known, and Taft being kind of bullyish and money driven. And Wilson wants to right the wrongs. The one crisis that Wilson deals with that is talked about at the end of the chapter is Pancho Villa, an incident. We almost go to war with Mexico again. In this bandit, Pancho Villa becomes a nemesis. He ends up chasing him, never finds him. He was murdering Americans across the border. War. He sends Pershing in, and all of this doesn't matter because by 1917, World War I really takes the stage. And that ends this chapter. Make sure that your second note sheet is completed and that you're prepared for a quiz tomorrow. And if you want to be very proactive, I really would like you to watch the video on the Progressive Era and take notes, which is it's going to be one link below on my website. Thank you very much for this 10-minute tutorial on becoming a world power. This is Mr. Kufs from Billy's Room, and I'll talk to you later.